And ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome you to our Andrea Fappani seminar on reining. And first off, I would like to thank Markel for sponsoring our seminar tonight. And Markel is a very active sponsor year-round with our Arabian reining program and our reiners all over the world. We do have reps here, representatives from Markel here, to handle any needs you might have. And if I could have the Markel reps kind of stand up, wave your hands, so people can see you. There you are, down by the bench. And Frank especially. Frank, you need to raise your hand solo because he has a microphone. And later on, after each section, Andrea is going to answer any questions anybody might have. And Frank has the microphone to get those questions to him. So at this point, we are going to introduce Mr. Andrea Fappani. And just want you to know that he is second in lifetime earnings in RHA. He is a $3 million rider. He was the youngest of all the $1 million riders. In 1998, he moved here from Italy, and he wants me to tell you that he is very happily married with two beautiful children, ages 7 and 9, Luca and Jeremy. He does train here in Scottsdale, Arizona. He specializes in young prospects for the Futurity and the Derbies. This is his first time competing in the Scottsdale Arabian program, and he has a finalist in both the purebred and the half Arabian Futurity on Friday and Saturday night. And he wants me to make sure to let everybody know that he feels very lucky to be part of the whole Silver Spurs program. And tonight he's actually riding one of their stallions, What It Takes. And What It Takes himself is a multiple U.S. national champion Arabian reining stallion. He is a top 5 purebred money earner stallion, 2009 U.S. national champion, 2007 U.S. national champion, 2007 Arabian Show reining horse champion, 2006 Futurity champion, 2006 youth national champion, 2006 Region 7 champion, and what's even more significant is he is the sire of 2 Arabian Futurity champions, and he's got babies in the Futurities finals again this year. And so we're very thrilled to have him here in Arizona standing down at Silver Spurs. So if this is something you'd like to get involved with, please come over and talk to Michael and Michelle and Brett and take a look at some of the fabulous quarter horse stallions and specifically What It Takes. Tonight, Andrea would like to give everyone a little insight into, no pun intended, what it takes to get the best out of your horse. He is going to take questions after each section. If you would wait for him to ask for questions, that would be great. Frank will take care of them. Andrea, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Guys, we don't have that much time tonight, and you know better than anybody how long it takes to prepare a horse, both to show and to train. So we're going to have to go quite faster than what I would like to do, but I want to give everybody, at least a little idea of what I feel is important to teach your horse in order to get the best in the show pen. There's a big part of training a horse that you do at home, but there's an equally big part you can do at the show pen. The result that you get at the end of the run is equally as important as the homework you've done at home and what you've done in just the last few hours coming up to that horse show. And then what we're going to concentrate on tonight is about that. It's about how to prepare and get the best out of your horse in the show pen. I've been around for a few years and I've noticed how many people do a really great job at home. They teach their horses great foundations, but they lack a little bit of knowledge in preparing the horse. Just absolutely. Can we turn the volume up a little bit or something? Okay. Can you guys hear me okay right now? Or can I keep going? Yeah? Yep. Still up? Okay. So anyway, what I want to concentrate on is these last few days, let's say, before we get go show our horse. And what do we do in order to get the best out of it? The most important thing you want to keep in mind is you're not going to change your horse at the show. What you've done at home for the last few months or sometimes years, it's not going to get changed in the last 3 days at the horse show. That's what most people need to understand, is that what we're going to do is try to keep the maneuvers that we have at home and try to show it to the judges. Try to maybe cover up some of the weak spots that we've got and try to put the emphasis in the good spots. And try obviously to get the best score that we can. It's about being a smart rider, and it's about preparing your horse to showcase what he's good at, not what he's bad at. And that's another thing that most people maybe lack a little bit of knowledge of. They seem to work a lot of weak parts of the horse because they know they need to get him better. To me, I leave those alone because if I haven't gotten better in the last year and a half, there's for sure no way I'm going to get him better in the last 2 hours before I go show. So I actually concentrate a little bit more on the strong parts of the horse when I get to the show because that's where I'm going to get my points. So what we're going to do tonight, I'm going to probably work a little bit on that on each maneuver, and I'm going to show you guys what I'm looking for in order to step in the show pen, and the detail that I want on my horse and the little cues that I'm going to give it in order to be able to go show that horse to those 5 judges that are sitting out there. Just like here at some of the biggest NRHA shows, we've got 5 judges. So you really can't get away from cheating and trying to cover too many things up because they've got an eye on you pretty much everywhere in the arena. There's definitely things that you can do that judges know that you're doing, but they're actually going to affect your score and you're going to be fined by doing it. So things that you do in the show pen, it's actually something that's going to make you a smarter rider, and it's something I'm going to show you tonight of what I'm thinking at in each position of the pattern in order to get the best out of it. We'll start in the circles, and the reason why I start in the circles is because they take most of the pattern, meaning that you've got always 3 circles on each side, and that's where you spend most of the time in your pattern. You can gain points, but the worst thing about the circles is you can lose a lot more points than you can gain. So we got to make sure that we pay attention to those circles, and we pay attention to what's important in the circles. See, a lot of guys see some of the top riders, my horses usually travel low-headed, so all they're concentrating on is trying to get their horses with their head down in the circle. I like a collected horse. Obviously, this horse here has been trained for quite a few years. He knows where to put his head, and he carries himself really low. But to me, as a trainer, I'm not trying to put their head low. What I'm trying to do is get a horse to be in a natural position. And obviously, if I buy a horse or if somebody sends me a horse that's naturally built with his low head, he's going to go around with a low head. But what affects your score is not the head position. It's the way your horse is looked in circles and how much you have to help your horse to stay in the circles. Meaning that you can mark a +1 with a horse with his head straight up in the air, and you can mark a +1 with a horse with the nose on the ground. It doesn't really matter. It's a particular style of the horse or rider. What does matter is how much are you helping that horse? How fast are you going? How much do you have to pull on it to slow him down? How much steering you have to do to keep him on the circle? Those are the things that matter. And that's what we're going to concentrate on. You can go around two-handed here at the show and put his head down and keep this horse in the circle right where we want. That's right where I want him, right? Head down is right here where I want him. If I go around like this, I'm not tuning my horse up to go show, because when my horse goes and shows, what happens? I'm going to put my hand down and the reins are long. Where is this horse going? Right out here, right where we don't want him to go. So that's exactly what I'm going to start working on. I'm going to start working on putting my head down and make sure that that horse stays on the circle by himself. And I don't care how trained your horse is, but if you put him in a new environment like this horse won a couple of futurities here. But now I put him in this environment that he's not used to, and he's falling apart. So what I'm doing, I'm letting him get out of the circle, and I'm going to tell him that this is not a good place to be. And what I'm telling him is to get back to that circle. So I'm putting pressure outside of the circle, and I'm turning the pressure away from him when he's in the position that I want. And this, to me, it's a good thing, because now I'm trying to train in his brain. I'm getting this horse to think about me. But now he's got 2 years up. That's telling me he's not thinking about me. So what we're going to work on is getting this horse to have 2 years on me and not on anything else. Like I said, I can bump his head down, and I'll probably put him right where I want him. But I don't have that luxury when I go show. So what's the point of doing it if I can't use it in the show pen? So what we're going to try to do is get this horse to concentrate on me the whole time. Like I said, you can have horses that are pretty broken and done really well. But if they're a little fresh, this is the first thing they're going to do. They're not going to want to stay where you want it to stay. By turning him around, I'm putting pressure on him when he's leaving that circle, and I'm going to take him I'm taking the pressure away when he's staying in the circle. You notice I don't care where his head is. He's looking over there, but he's where I want him in the circle, so I'm going to leave him alone. Because pretty soon I feel that in 5-10 minutes, if he realizes that he has to stay here on his own, his ears are probably going to start coming back to me, and his head is going to go lower, because he's not going to want to get out of that circle. See how his ears are starting to come to me? Now he's not wanting to get out as much, so instead of putting a lot of pressure on him, I put a little less pressure, I just steer him back to the circle when he leaves it. A lot of people think a horse is high-headed, he has his head up, but if he usually travels with a head, let's say at this level, and the head comes up, it's not because it's stiff in the face, it's because his brain is not with you. Anytime a horse thinks about you, the head goes down. Like this horse is lowering right now, and I've got my hand right here, and he's staying in the circle. Yeah, he's still looking out there a little bit. If you notice where his head is, he's starting to come down. Here he's concentrating on these people. I'm going to put pressure away. I'm telling that this right here is where I want it to stay. I pretty much start every lesson like this, especially at the horse shows, but even at home. Obviously it depends on how old the horse is. This horse here already knows how to circle, so I'm expecting him to circle on his own. I don't want to have to help him. I want to make sure that I take my hands off and this horse stays on the circle. If he stays on the circle, then we can move on and work on other things. Because to me, the circle is the basis of getting the horse's attention on me. I can lope a circle like this in the show pen and still get my point, even if his head is looking to the outside a little. But if I'm having to lope a circle like this in the show pen to hold him here because he wants to get out there, then I'm going to get 0 points because I'm helping my horse too much. So what I'm working on is showing the judges that the horse is doing the job for me, that I'm not doing the job for the horse. Obviously, they're smart enough that I did a lot more work than the horse did because I taught him to stay there. Now, I don't have a problem with picking up and making sure that he gives, because once I know that he stays in the circle, then I want to make sure that I can hold on to his face and there's no resistance. But once again, when I go show, I might have to pull on his face. If he wants to run off or if he wants to not stay in the circle, I'm going to have to help him. So first we try to get him to stay in the circle on his own and teach him that. Second, we want to make sure that we can pick up on it so that when we go show and we have a slight contact, the horse is not going to resist our hands and we're still going to get our point. If we pick up and he raises up, that's going to be a flag for the judge to probably deduct from the maneuver. So we're going to work on that big circle, and just as important is the small circle. A lot of people keep loping big circles. I lope a lot of small circles for 2 reasons. One, which is obvious, is because I got to lope slow circles when I go show, so if I don't work on it, see how he's losing that small circle now? If I don't work on it, I can't expect him to be solid in the show pet. I just changed it up now and I'm losing his brain again. I made a small circle and now he's not wanting to stay on, so I'm going to keep bringing him back in. The second reason why I would work on it is because it's giving me a chance to fix a lot more things in a shorter amount of time. If you notice, this horse, like most of them, is leaning towards the gate a little bit. So in the big circle, let's say that I come in the gate, in the center of the arena once every 30 seconds. In the small circle, I can come once every 5 seconds or 10 seconds to the center of the arena. So it's, let's say in 5 minutes, I can work on it a lot more in the small circle than I would in a big circle. So if I've got a problem in the circle in a certain spot, I do a small circle right there in that spot, but it's giving me a lot more chances to fix it. And now I've got his brain in the small circle. I have to help him, and he actually wants to slow down for me because he doesn't want to go away from that circle anymore. So once I come out, I make sure that I can pick up the lope. He stays in the circle. We work on the big circle first. We work on the small circles. It's not one small circle. It's about 40 small circles. I want to make sure this horse, once I put him in the small circle, he knows that he has to stay in the small circle. I see a lot of the horses going in the show pen, waiting for that small circle to finish up, to either speed up or go back to the big circle, because people don't practice enough small circles, I believe. So once we have a horse that lopes big circles and small circles, and lets us grab a hold of his face, then I move on to speed control. It's a big part of showing speed control. By that, I mean that you're always pretty much out of the 6 circles loping at least 4 fast circles. So we got to practice that. The biggest theory that I have is that I've got to practice what I need in the show pen. I can't be afraid to practice it. That's what I think a lot of people do You know, they know they've got a weak spot here and there, so they're almost scared to find out. You know, they'll work on that medium speed, even if they know that when they go show and they go a little faster, the horse is going to drop his shoulders or run off. They don't want to even think about it. You know, it makes them feel better to sleep the night before. But then guess what? You go in and show, the son of a gun runs off. You know, so I might as well lose a little sleep and worry about it, but know that I've done all the work I've had to do in order to get as good as I can. Never perfect. Even some of my best runs, it never felt perfect. I wish I could have changed something. What we're trying to do is do the best we can. That's all you can do. We're going to practice speeding him up and see what happens. Still feels pretty good here. He's elevating. I have a feeling that by adding speed, when I get to the center, he's probably going to want to lean to the outside again. I know he's looking up, and his head is a little elevated. I'm just waiting. He did it. I'm going to keep pushing it faster. Yeah, I can fix his head because I don't like where his head is, but I want to wait and make sure that he doesn't have his head looking to the outside because he's thinking about going to the outside. Because that's what I'm seeing. I think that eventually, here we go, he goes to the outside. If I would have fixed that head right away, I would have never find out what the problem was. Yeah, I covered it up and put his head down, but I never fixed the fact that he wanted to leave the circle. But by being patient and waiting, that horse is going to tell you what he's thinking. By fixing it right away when you see it happening, you never really know what he's thinking. You're just watching his reactions and you're fixing his reaction. I don't want to fix his reaction. I want to fix his brain. I want him thinking about me. I'll almost lean to the outside and invite him to go there, and then I bring it back. Now that his head is coming to peak, meaning that he's wanting to stay in the circle even going fast, his head is going to go lower. Without me working on his face. I haven't worked on his face. I worked on between his ears and his brain. By his brain coming to me, that's where that head is going. Lower and lower and lower. See how he's stretching his neck down? Because he has no more thoughts in his brain. He's just listening to what I want him to do. He's not listening to what his brain is telling him to do. Like I said, I know I can make it prettier, but if I can't make it solid, there's no point of trying to make it prettier. A lot of people lose track of what's important, and they look at the little details that don't really matter when you go show. And I'm at fault of that many times, because I kind of want everything to be perfect, and sometimes I lose focus on what is important. What's important is for this horse to pick up the lope correctly, lope off, let me go fast, ask him to slow down, and go back in the small circle and then either stop in the center or change lead, whatever we're going to do next. You notice I haven't mentioned where his head is, I haven't mentioned where his nose is, because a lot of the times it's not that important. Meaning that you're going to get a solid plus half out of your horse by running correct circles, and sometimes by trying to pay attention to all the details and trying to do too many things at the same time, you're going to run into problems. Because guess what? The more you try to keep the horse's head in a certain position, the less he can look around. Sometimes he'll spook more because he's got his head down and he can't see out there. Sometimes he'll trip. Sometimes there's a lot more factors into it. Obviously, when you get to the top level, you're trying to go as deep into details as you can. But I think you have to start from the simple point. It doesn't matter if you're an offer or you or an energetic professional, whatever you are. I think we're all shooting for that 70, and therefore that 70 we build on it. But if you can't mark a 70 any day, what's the point of trying to make it pretty? A 70 is the base number. That's a correct pattern. So if we can get the correct pattern every day, then we build on it and we try to make it nicer. By worrying about the way the horse carries himself, by adding more speed. Speed is the big deal in reining, and you've got to get your horse comfortable. What I try to think is that if I run at 10 miles an hour outside, I'm going to run my horse about 8 miles an hour when I go show. If I can run him 15, I'll run him at 13 when I go show. Why is that? Because I want that horse to not feel as much pressure in the show pen as he gets outside. So I'm trying to make my life a lot harder when I train him outside and make it a lot easier when I go show. That horse will last a lot longer if he's comfortable in the show pen. But many times I see people riding out there with the draw reins or the martingale and keeping that horse's head down, and everything is nice at medium speed. They walk in the show pen, everything comes off, we go twice as fast. What is that horse supposed to think? This is a bad place, that's a good place. Guess what? I'm going to lead to that gate because I want to go back to the good place, not the bad place. So what I'm trying to do as a trainer is get this horse comfortable being in this situation right here. And it's a challenge because it's not just about the maneuver, but mainly it's his mind. You know, when he gets here, he's by himself. Now we're putting all these maneuvers together. Now we're adding speed. Now if he's making a mistake, we're not fixing it right away. So he's like, okay, wait a minute, why is he not fixing it? So that's why I'm trying to train myself before I go show to wait and let the horse see and see what the horse is telling me. Because if I fix his head right away and then I go show and he looks to the outside and I don't fix it anymore, now the situation has changed. So I want this horse being comfortable with me not fixing things until they really fall apart. I work equally to the left than I do to the right. Obviously, if you have a horse that circles worse one way than the other, as we always do, just pay a little bit more time on that one side. But once again, remember that if that's a bad circle because he drops his shoulders and you worked on it for a year, you're not going to make it better at the show. Let him drop his shoulder on that side and concentrate on the good side because that's where you're going to get your point. It's a lot easier to lose points than it is to gain points. So I concentrate on gaining points and trying to stay safe where I've got a big hole or even a little hole where there's a chance of losing points. Let's say you've got a horse that on the left lead, when you slow down, tends to sometimes fall out of lead. On the right lead, you can go wide open, and he seems to be pretty strong on the right lead. Right away, what do? You start working to the left. Then you go show, and just because you worked for a year and you haven't changed it, now you've worked your butt off the last 2 days to the left, but he falls out of lead, and you're still trying to get that plus half to the left, and guess what? 8 times out of 10, you'll probably fall out of lead because he's not that strong. But now you forgot about the right side, and where you could probably get a plus 1, you're only going to get a plus half. And here you've got a chance that you're going to fall out of lead and probably get a 1-point penalty. My philosophy is to stay at a 0 on this side and don't get my penalty and go try to get a plus 1 on the easy side. Another thing that I was telling you about is as I'm showing, more than preparing the horse, what do we think? What is our mindset as I'm showing? I'm pretty much validating my whole pattern every quarter of a circle. I do a little checkup every quarter of a circle, and instead of being a passenger, I'm like, okay, what's going on here? What do I have to do to keep this together or make it better, or anything that I feel. So if I lope off in the middle and I speed up, it feels good. Let's ask him for a little bit more speed and see if I can get it more. Feels good. I'm going to keep going at this speed. Now he's looking to the left. So I'm going to start looking, he's looking to the right, I'm going to start looking to the left. The judge is thinking I'm looking at where I'm going. I'm actually helping this horse stay in the circle. Because by looking over there, my body's telling me, please stay here, please stay here. I haven't moved my hand yet. Because when I move my hand, the judge knows that I had to help that horse stay in the circle. I slip my inside right shoulder without you guys seeing it. And I'm looking to the left, because I know he's thinking over there. So I keep looking over here. So now he feels pretty good, so now I want to get a good slowdown in the middle. I feel like I'm slowing down on a loose rein. Instead of keeping that left rein short, I'm going to lengthen it up and show the judges I can slow this horse down with a loose rein and hopefully get that point. And I look to the left. Now I fell out of lead, right? So what do? Most people look down and start fixing it. So now you got a minus half circle and a 1-point penalty. If he's already in lead, forget about trying to fix your horse. He's in lead. We're here to try to make as much money as we can. So we're not going to fix it in the show pen. Just forget about it, look ahead, and keep showing your horse. That's another thing that you're going to have to learn, that you've got to show 2 mistakes. A lot of time, there's going to be a point in the pattern where you're not happy with what's going on, just like I wasn't when he fell out of lead. You stop your mind from moving fast and moving to what's next, and you concentrate on what happened there, you're probably not going to get as good of a score as if you would have just forgot about it and moved on. A lot of times, especially when you work hard, let's say you made a final, This last year, the reining futurity, I had a mare that was really good in the go-around, and I went in my second set of circles, before I even got to any of the stops, she fell out of lead in a fat circle by one stride. I thought about it for maybe a quarter of let's say 2 or 3 strides, and then I moved on. And a lot of times in the past, I would have got stuck on that and probably wouldn't have showed as hard in the stop. But I pushed her as hard as I could, or as hard as I could have pushed her that night in the stop. I still got at 222, and I was fourth in the futurity with a big penalty. A lot of times when you go and you have a penalty, or you've got a penalty, or a maneuver hasn't gone good, and then you get the crowd that goes, oh, like that. Then you're like, oh, shit, can't do that. The crowd goes, and you go, like that, and you go for it, because that's what you're doing there. You're trying to get as much as you can for you, the horse, the owners, everybody's watching. As long as you keep showing, those judges are going to want to give you the point. If your head goes down, you start picking up on the horse, the judges are not even looking at you. They're going to give you 0, 0, 0, 0. He's not trying. You got to show like you're trying. If you're trying hard, they want to mark you. If you're not trying and you're half schooling, half showing, those judges are getting bored. They don't want to mark those riders. So that's one thing that I've had to learn is that, even if it doesn't feel really good, we've got to show what we've got, and we've got to make the best out of it. So the reason why I was telling you that I look where I want to go is because that's an easy way, maybe on older horses that are thinking about lead changes and stuff, do not let them think about it as much. Meaning that you're looking down and say, please don't change, pretty soon they're going to go, bam, change lead. But if you're looking like you're going to do 5 circles to the left, and then you get to the center and you look to the right and you change, those horses never saw it coming. But you faked them out because they thought that you were going for another circle because you were looking over there. And anytime you look, doesn't matter if you're on skis, horses, motorcycles, wherever you look, your body's going to take you there. That's why I'm always trying to look ahead of where I want the horse to be. Not where I'm going, where I want the horse to be. Because if I want that horse to be thinking left and I look left, then at the last minute I look right, then he'll go to the right. But if I start looking straight or right, he's right before the center, he'll probably anticipate the lead change before he gets to the middle. So I'm going to wait until the center. When I hit the center, I go to the right. And that horse, what did this horse do? Right. When I looked to the right, my hand went to the right. I wasn't thinking about moving my hand, but my body moved to the right. And I told that horse that it's okay to go to the right. Once again, there's a lot of things that we can talk about. There's horses that go better when you lean forward. There's horses that ride better when you sit back. Some of the rougher horses I like to sit up because they're not kicking in the butt all the time, and I feel a little bit more comfortable position. Believe it or not, some of the ones that want to run off, I lean forward. Because I'm telling the judge, I'm pushing it, and then I'm going easy, son of a gun, don't go easy. But I'm telling the judges that I'm actually going. So what I'm trying to do is give that perception of going, even on one that I really don't feel like going because I know it's not going to be pretty. Now that said, most judges, they know it, but you've got to be cautious about it and you've got to know what you're doing. We're not trying to fake them out. What we're trying to do is smart and knowing our horse. That's the other thing, when you have got more horses to show than one, a lot of times you get to do repetition and do the same thing on every horse. Every time I get off a horse and I know I gotta get on the new one to go show, I stop for 5 minutes and I either stand or I go walk and I'm like, okay, what's important with this horse? What do I need to do with this one? If you do the same thing that you did last time you were in the show pen with the last one, you're probably not gonna get the same result. Every horse is an individual. I don't care if you train them all. You gotta train them a little bit different. You gotta prepare them a little bit different. You've gotta show a little bit different. So one horse you may wanna wound him up a little bit more because he's lazy. One horse you may want to cloak him down and don't do any maneuvers before you go show because he gets ahead of yourself. What I try to do before I go show is not, I train hard the night before or that morning. I train him and test all my buttons and get everything I can. And then when I get up to go show, if you notice, anybody that's seen me riding, I get on quite a bit of time before, but I'm not doing a whole lot. I may say walk a couple times and turn them a couple times, but there's a lot of walking, trotting, sometimes long trotting, breaking them down to a walk, picking up the lope, making sure that they break down. Everything I want to be relaxed. Now I know that I can go wide open because I practiced it before, but I don't want to go wide open right before I go show because then I'm just winding my horse up. If you see me out there doing a plus half circle and I come here and I ask for a +1, it's because I know I can do the +1.5, so I'm coming here and asking for the +1. I'm practicing for a 0 out there, I'll probably ask for a +0.5 out here, because I know I can do a +1 probably, or close to a +1, so I'm going to step it back just a little bit and try to get the +0.5 in the show pen. So right before I go show, I don't want them up and go faster than I want to go in the show pen. Unless I have a horse that's pretty lazy. Most of the times they're not. The nice horses are really feeling and want to kind of get away from you. You just have to calm it down. So I practice hard the night before, and then really easy before I go show, and try to get them in that mindset where they're relaxed going into the show pen. You agree with that, Frank, or not? Where's Frank? You're not even ready. Look at you. You're talking so big today, and now you're not even ready. Can you talk, or you lost your voice?
I lost my microphone.
There you go.
But I found it. You know what? I didn't know you were so long-winded. You need to let that horse catch some air and let these people ask some questions.
Let's do that.
All right. Where should I start?
Anybody
Who's got a
has
question
any
for
questions at
Andrea?
all? Doesn't really matter, as long as on something that I've done. I'm going to try to cover all the maneuvers, but on something that we've done so far, anybody that said, I'm not sure about that, that didn't sound right, or something that's not clear, feel free to ask me.
And you know what, Andrea? They're going to be able to watch in their own time and in their own comforts of home on the YouTube channel that Markel has. So Andrea probably doesn't know it, but we're filming you for posterity today. So once again, this clinic that Andrea is so graciously doing will be available to all the folks here whenever you want to watch it on the Markel YouTube channel. But what questions do you have for Andrea? Anyone?
I can move on and keep talking. They can always come back. I mean, it's not like it's a last chance, last question.
Well, I got one.
Oh boy. What?
That's all right. Keep going.
No, you have one? Anything?
Well, Andrea, when you said when you were in a large circle,
Yeah.
you said you felt that your horse was going to make a mistake, but you were not there to correct the problem. You were there to capture his mind, and you didn't correct the horse until he really emphasized where he was going until you got to the middle. And I don't know about the people that are sitting here observing, but you know, as a non-professional myself, I really found myself paying attention to what Andrea was telling us, because my tendency would be to overreact immediately, where someone obviously in the category of Andrea is a lot smarter than the average non-pro and is knowing where the horse is really going, and he's going to give that horse an opportunity to go to the center and really make a mistake and then correct him. And I found that particularly useful.
Good. Well, I forced myself to not help the horse at all when I train, and let him tell me what I need to work on, and not me being the one doing the job, but let him do the work. And then I do the opposite when I show. When I show, I don't take any chances. I'm always riding that horse. I'm always telling him what to do. Because I don't want him, mind, to start wandering on his own. So when I'm showing, even if he feels good, I'm always doing something that you can't see. Maybe talking to him, maybe kissing to him. Because sometimes I might be going fast enough, but instead of clocking as I'm doing, I'm starting to kiss, just to catch his attention. So when I show, I want his full attention on what I'm asking him to do. When I'm training, I take all that out and I let him make the decision, so I can bring him back to me and show him what I really want. And that's hard to do, because you don't want to see, especially in front of other people here at the show, you don't want to show everybody your weak spots. You know, it doesn't feel good. You know, it doesn't feel good to let it go bad. You know, if they're not missing stuff when you say, whoa, why go down and just help it? Just say, whoa, let him go straight, and then pick up and back him up. When I go show, I'll go down there and help him out and balance him and do everything I can to make him stop. But here, if I know that he's not listening to wall, there's no point of me on drawing on his face, because I want to concentrate on that wall. So I'm going to leave my hands completely down and just say wall until that horse tries for me. It's not about impressing people in the show, in the warm-up pen. It's about impressing the judges in the show pen.
Andrea, 1 second. We have a lovely young lady here that has a question for you.
You were discussing about how you should, when you're showing, not be correcting and up in their face because you're going to lose points on it. But if you're really working on your horse, shouldn't they be in tune to you as a rider, especially if you're a trainer shower, that just as you lift the rein, they should know what's coming before you're actually up in their mouth?
Yeah, no, for sure. That's what I was saying. I just don't want to have to overtrain. The showpen is not a place to train. Obviously, if you're schooling your horse, or if it fell apart, and you gave up showing and you're schooling on him, of course you got to do it. And like I say, I want to make sure that I can pick up and then make my horse soft, probably 1,000 times before I go show, because I want to make sure that if I go show and about 3/4 of that small circle, the horse elevates and he's starting to think about something, I can pick up without losing very many points. So if this horse here, if I pick up here, I haven't lost very many points. What I don't want to do is start going and showing and picking up. Obviously, if you have to, you have to. But a lot of times, I don't think that you really have to. Or at least I wait until I really get to the point where I'm like, well, okay, it's done, so I need to do it. Or there's no other option. But I try to gradually get to that point. I'm not going to pick up on him right away when something bad happens. Because a lot of times it feels a lot worse to you than it does to the judges. They don't know what speed you want it to go at. So if you want it to go at 8 miles an hour, the horse is going at 9, he's still not running off. The judges don't know that he's run off. Yeah, you're not happy with it, but if you start peeking your hands out, that judge is going to be, well, I guess you didn't want to go that fast. But he had no idea before you've done that. So if you feel that you can ride it and ride him through it, you might as well ride him through it, because I don't think the judge has any idea of the speed that you wanted to get in the first place. Does that make sense? Or?
Yes, thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right.
Yes.
The next thing we're going to work on, or touch a little bit on, is the spins, turnaround. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this, because I want to spend more time in the stop. And the spins, it's a tough maneuver. It's a tough maneuver to teach. It takes a long time. It takes a talented horse to do it. Takes a naturally talented horse, meaning that he can be really talented at stopping, but if he's not naturally talented at turning, it's a tough maneuver for them to do. And the toughest thing about it is that you can't get that many points out of it. Meaning you only have one turn on each side, but it's so hard to go really fast, really pretty in order to get a +1, and then stop straight to not get a -half or -1 penalty because you haven't stopped straight. So I struggle sometimes with the turnarounds, because sometimes I even ask myself, is it really worth it to work on it that much to try to get the +1 turn? Because out of a +1 turn, for me especially, I guess I'm not that great at it, but for me especially, at least 1/4 of the times I'm not stopping straight. If I get a +1 speed, then it's tough for me to stop them straight, or even if I stop them straight, their butt kicks out to the side and I get a -half stop penalty anyway. So a +half turn goes a long way. If it's nice, clean, and you can stop straight. Obviously, less speed, the less the difficulty to stop. So what I'm trying to do is get obviously the best that I can out of my horse, but I want to make sure that when I work on spins that I get it really solid to where I can take it to the show pen. Because I can get most horses that I ride, and they're talented horses, but most horses I can probably get it to turn +1. But I know inside of me that I can't get it out of him in the show pen. I've had to work so much outside to get that +1, and maybe I get the +1 by the 5th turn. But guess what? You only get 4 in the show pen. So if you can only get a half by the 4th turn, what's the point of keep trying to get the +1, because you're not going to get to it in the show pen anyway. So once I get to the show, I ask myself, what can I get? What is solid on this horse? Is it a 0, is it a +half, or is it a +1? Whatever is really solid, I'm going to work on that. The most important thing is the start of the turnaround. Like a lot of the maneuvers in reining, or I think any discipline, the start, it's about half or even more of the total quality of the maneuver. Meaning if the horse takes the first step the wrong way, it's probably going to be, pretty hard in only 4 turnarounds to get it back. So that's why at home I work a lot on the start, because if I can get the horse to move his feet in the correct position on the start of the turn, it's going to make my job a lot easier. And just like in the circle, I want him to take those couple steps in the right position on his own, not me. Meaning that I can do this at home and start that turnaround, and he started just fine and he's turning really good. But then when I go show, I don't have 2 hands, and I don't want to have contact on his face. Maybe I will use it if I need it. But what I want to work on is getting that horse to do it on his own. So here at home, I'm going to do this. Meaning that I turned that horse loose in the face, and I wanted to see what he did on his own. But if he would have taken a step forward, I could have fixed it and bringing it back on both sides. We're going to try. That's what I didn't want right there. See, I'm almost inviting him to go forward with my hand. If you notice, I'm not coming back here to put him right where I want him. I'm asking him, here's the neck ring. Tell me where you want to go. You want to go forward? No, that's not an option right there. Still, I wasn't happy because the first step was forward. I want that first step to be either the outside foot behind the front foot and then go forward, or the inside foot coming back. That's what I wanted. He moved his inside foot this time. And I haven't helped him. Like I say, it looks a lot easier because obviously this horse knows what he's doing. But that's what I'm working on first. That I can start that turn on the loose rein, and even if I lean forward here, can't take that step forward. My cue is to open the inside leg and put the neck rein on it. You should not have to listen to my body. So even if I invite you to go out, I still want you to stay back. Because then when I go show and I stay back, then you're really going to stay back. But if I'm begging my horse at home or right before I show, please stay here. Please stay here. Don't go up there. Then when I go show, it's not going to be as easy for me because I've been helping him already outside. Now this doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the turnaround, but this is the first thing I work on, the start of the turn. The other thing that's important is that I don't put the horse in the position that I want before I turn. Why is that? Because most of the time they get to the middle of the arena, that horse is not going to be in the position that I want. Most of the time I walk to the pen and I walk to the middle, that horse is going to look either straight up in the crowd or he's going to look at that gate. And unless I want to touch his face, it's going to be hard for me to fix it. So what's the point of putting his head down when I go show if he's going to do this and now I got to turn to the right? So at home I wait for him to look to the left and I ask him to actually turn to the right. But I wanted to get used to that feeling, meaning that even if you're looking at that gate, I still can turn the other way. And I want you going to the turn. So I'm not preparing that horse, I'm not putting his head down, then asking him to turn. Because that's too easy. Now when I'm teaching him to turn, I'm doing that. Now I'm not teaching him anymore. Now I'm getting him ready to show. So I'm waiting for his attention to be way out there, and then I ask him to turn. What that teaches, that horse, every time he looks up at something, I'm going to ask him to do something different. So then pretty soon look at his ears. Why are they not looking up anymore? He's connected, looking up with turning, and he doesn't really want to turn, he much rather stand. So I'm not going to turn when I stand, I'm going to turn when I lose his attention. So that's doing two things, getting him used to turning, even if he's facing a different direction when I go show, and teaching him to pay attention to me. So when I go show and he's looking up and I ask him to turn, it's almost like training for him, because I've done it so much outside that he thinks, okay, he doesn't want me to look up. The judge has no idea because I haven't picked up on his face, but it's an exercise that I practice outside, so every time I lose his attention, I'm asking him to turn. And then pretty soon when he walks to the show pen and he gets to the middle, he doesn't want to look up because he knows I'm going to turn. So every time he looks up, I'm going to ask him to turn. His ears are coming back to me now. That's what I'm always looking at, those ears. Those ears speak to you. They don't have a language, but they say a lot with their ears. And I'm not looking for him to be with me all the time. What I'm looking for is him to look up and then come back to me, because he knows that when he looks up, I'm going to do something. And what that something is turn around the opposite way where I think he's thinking. See, they're going up, but you see how they're coming back? Now he's not coming back. Now I turn the opposite way. Now he's moving him back and forth. He's decided that he's not staying with me. I ask him to turn. So this is a good exercise, not so much to work on the quality of the maneuver, but to work on their brain and getting them ready to go show. You notice I haven't done a whole lot of turns or spins. I've done one or two and I stop right away. Then one or two and I stop right away. And then the other thing is to get the best that you can by the fourth turn, like I was saying. It's so easy to be out there, do 10, 15 turns, and you finish out pretty good and you feel good about it, but you forgot about the first four. What I try to do before I show, I count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Did I get what I wanted? No. Okay, let's get out of the turn, work on what I need to do. Let's go back and do those 1, 2, 3, 4. But I don't want to stay in and do 15 of them if I've got a problem at the third turn. So I make it better, get out of that turn, stop for a second, go back and try it again. By stopping and trying, stopping and trying, stopping and trying, then I'm trying to get those four turns as good as I can get it. Now in training, there's a lot of things involved in a turnaround, you know. I mean, I want this horse, like I said, to stay in on his own. I want this horse to let me pick up on his face and keep turning like this when he's doing, because he's teaching him to keep his feet underneath himself and turn in the correct position. I want to be able to use that outside leg and get speed out of it. But, you know, that all comes from training. What we're trying to figure out here, what do we have? The last thing I want to talk about in the turnaround is the shut off. That's the other thing that really can hurt us if we don't practice it. So we got to practice it for two reasons. One, to teach the horse the cue to stop, and two, to get ourselves trained to stop correctly. And that's one thing I always struggle with, and I try to force myself to work on it at home. You don't want to do it too much, because the quality of maneuver is not going to be as good, because the horse is going to start reading your body, and it's going to be tougher for you to go show him if he's really sensitive to your cues. So what I try to do is practice it quite a bit before I come to the show. So if I'm coming to the show this weekend, I'm probably going to practice it all the way up to the beginning of this week, and then I'm going to forget about the shut off and just keep turning maybe 5, 6, 7 times. That way that horse doesn't take 4 turns and stop. My cues to stop is say whoa and put my hand down. If the horse doesn't stop right away, then I take him the opposite direction. So I want that shut off to be quick. So if he takes an extra step, I bring him back. When he hears whoa and the hand goes down, he needs to stop both of his feet. It doesn't matter where I'm at. It doesn't matter if he's up in the air. That's what he needs to do. So that's for the horse. The other thing I want to work on is making sure that I see where I want to stop. We know that that's the judge right there. We know that we're supposed to stop straight, but it's hard to look at the judge. Now, especially for me, I always kind of look between the horse's ears when I turn. And then a lot of times, if I don't remind myself to pick my eyes up and look where I need to stop, I've got either an overturn or an underturn. So what I do, at 3 1/2, I turn and look at the judge. 2, 3. So at 3 1/2, I turn my head and I look at where the judge is. Here I'm looking at my horse. 2, 3. Doesn't matter if he's turning good or bad. When you go show, if he's turning bad like he was there, you can't fix it. Concentrate on stopping straight, because you're going to lose a lot more points than going to -1 overturn than worrying about the quality of your turnaround. That quality of the turnaround, it's gone by now. So you may as well try to not get any penalties at all. If you train yourself to turn your head and look at the judge, then you know where you're supposed to stop, and you're going to be able to stop that horse straight. But if you're always looking down when you're turning, and then you're saying whoa, you're kind of guessing where you're supposed to stop. You know that area, but that area has a lot of -halves in there. We want to make sure that we stop right on the point. Any questions about this?
Those all the questions? Oh, come on. The advice that Andrea gave us all with that turnaround, even somebody at my age learned a lot. I know, I've got a few years on most all of these cities. Well, there might be a couple guys. I don't think that's some sort of over here. Questions, everybody?
Better ask me, because he's going to start asking you questions.
I know.
Fine, we can move on. Let me just first, I'll move on to the stops, and then at the end, I'm sure there's going to be questions or things that I haven't touched, because there's a lot of things that I'm not going to be able to touch because of the time. So I'll move on and finish it, and then we can give as much time as we need to any of the questions.
Okay. Now, where did you say we were all going to dinner, Andrea?
What?
Where did you say we were all going to dinner after that to answer the questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one that you're paying. All right. So now comes the part that's really where you can get your points in the Chopin, which is the stops. And I know I'm not supposed to talk about training or anything else here, but one thing I want to share with you is my philosophy that if you're going to buy a reiner or buy a prospect, try to buy one that can stop naturally. You can build a decent turn, you can build a decent circle, but you cannot build a decent stop of a horse that doesn't want to stop. So all these horses that stop great out here that you guys see, it's not because me or Craig or anybody that's on it has made it. They're the horses that stop. We try to make it prettier. The horse naturally wants to stop, then you can build on that. I don't have a natural stopper, and not because it's me, because I've got a lot of choice. I just don't want to spend the time, because you spend so much time working on it, and then when you go show it, they're still not going to want to stop. That's one thing that's either natural for them or not. They don't have to be bred great. They don't have to be even reiners. There's some off-the-wall bred horses that are naturally good stoppers. Like some of the, I mean, this horse here, I don't even think, I'm not very knowledgeable as far as Arabian breeding, but I don't think that he was bred to be a reiner, but naturally he's a big stopper. And that makes it so much easier. So my advice to anybody is that sacrifice, look at your budget, and you can sacrifice every other maneuver naturally. But try to get something that stops pretty good on a natural and everyday basis, because that's going to make your life so much easier when you go show. That said, what I want to do before I get ready to show is put that horse in the best position possible to stop at least 3 or 4 times when I go show. Once again, what you've done at home, it's what you're going to have here. So practicing a lot of stops at the horse show, unless you have a horse that takes a while to get used to new ground, I don't think it does a whole lot. What you want to practice is everything that's going to determine the quality of that stop, which is pretty much the rundown. The way the horse approaches to the stop and the way he gets to that stop, it's going to determine the quality of the maneuver. So if you've got a 0 stop, we're going to try to put him in the best position possible to get that 0. If you've got a plus half, same thing. The position, it's a horse that runs straight, and he's listening to your cue for speed, and he's listening to your cues to stop, obviously. So I've got 3 cues to stop. I say whoa, which is the most important that I want to teach first. I pick up on their face, and I open my legs. I want to be able to stop on all 3 cues. So before I go show, up to the last minute, I'm checking all my tools. So those 3 tools I need to have before I go show. It doesn't matter how good he stops. I just want to make sure he's listening to all 3 cues. So first things first, we're going to make sure that we can stop. So what's the point of getting to the stop and work on the rundown if he's not listening to us when we say whoa? So first of all, we want to make sure that he listens to whoa. So we're not going to help him at all. We're going to pick up the low. Oh. Also, this one's listening to it. If you notice, I haven't gone back. I haven't opened my legs much. Now that I know that he listens to that, I'm going to do even more. Go to the gate. Lean forward. Oh. Obviously, this horse is trained well to listen to that word. Well, I've got my tool here. I invited him to almost run off in a position where I know that he's probably thinking about going, but when he hears the whoa, pulls the trigger, goes to the ground. That's the most important thing. And we want to make sure that we don't say whoa and that he's listening to our hand. So obviously he is. Now the third one, I'm not going to use my hand or my voice, and I'm just going to open my legs. Okay, so I know I've got my 3 tools. Obviously this one knows how to do it well. So, but what do I do? If I don't have this, there's no point in working on anything else. So whatever cue he's not listening to, I keep pulling him back. If he doesn't listen to whoa, I'm going to say whoa. And then pull him back. Then whoa. 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 You get that, when I say whoa and he's sucking back on his own without me pulling on him, I know he's listening to whoa. Same thing with your hand. Now if you notice, one thing that's important is to notice the way I use my hand. I didn't pull him in the ground. I gave him a cue with my hand. Meaning that I'm not going down the pen and pulling on his face to make him stop. That's too easy. And also what it teaches is the horse to actually brace up. The whole point of using our hands is to make the horse soft in the face. So what I'm doing, I'm giving him a cue, maybe a couple inches on the neck with my hand. But that's just a cue. I don't want to interfere with his face when he's stopping. It's just a different cue from whoa. Then if he doesn't stop, then of course I'm going to pick up on him. I move him and he doesn't stop. Then I pull him and say, hey, you need to stop. But now what I do, instead of saying whoa, I'm backing him up by giving the cue, and then I pick up on him. Then I give him the cue, then I pick up on him. Then I give him the cue, backed up without me picking up on it, I'm going to go retest my stop. Now I give him the cue and he stopped without me picking up on his face. Now I'm using my hand, but I'm not pulling on his face to make him stop. Okay. Now that we've got the stop, now we got to worry about the rundown. It doesn't matter if you've got to fence your horse 30 times and then he stops at plus one because he's finally running straight. You're probably going to go to the show pen. He's not going to stop like that because it took you too long to get him running straight. So more than fencing, and a lot of times you have to fence at the shows because it's pretty crowded. But what I like to do a few days before I go show is put my horse in a show situation. Meaning that more than fencing, when we go show, we don't fence. So what's the point of fencing too much if we don't do it in the show pen? Now there's a lot of advantages of fencing, and we covered that up in the training part of it, but to get your horse ready to show, I don't think fencing is that important. Some horses, it's more important than others. So I'm going to put him in this situation. Right here, I found already what I didn't like going to the stops. I haven't even gotten to say whoa yet. Meaning that I looked around the pen, the horse paid attention to me. When I asked him to turn the corner to go to the stop, the horse wasn't following my hand. So if the horse is leaning on me here, he's going to lean even more down there. So I got to fix this turn. He's looking up. I ask him, still speeding up. I think to slow down and pay attention to me when I turn that corner. This is what we're going to have to do when we go show. That's what I want him to do. Now I put my hands down, and he speeds up on his own. And we got to fix that. Because if he's speeding up on his own, he's probably not going to listen to all that well down there. Because him speeding up is telling me he's not waiting for my cues. He knows what he's supposed to do, so he's going to do it on his own. What we're working on is getting this horse to always think about us. They may know what they're doing, but they got to wait for us to ask them to do it. Okay? I got to listen to me. I want to make sure he goes slow all the way to the end. And then at the end, I'll let him stop at the fence. I want him to stay straight here. Because a lot of times, if you just go around, then you teach these horses to drop their shoulders at the end and not go straight. So I want him thinking about going straight. So I stopped him at the fence. Now here I did a half a turn, almost like a rollback, picked up the lope, he sped up on his own. I didn't ask him to. I stopped him just to tell him that he can't go that fast. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Once again, I don't care where his head is. I will worry about that if I've got everything else. Here's speeding up just a little bit. I asked him to slow down. He came back to me. So I didn't punish him too much. But as soon as I picked up on him, he came back. We're going to do the same thing. Rolling back to the left. He's thinking about going fast, but not too bad. So what I'm going to do is going to invite him and stop him. I don't want to stay back there and say, please stay slow, stay slow, stay slow. You're thinking about it, let go. And then I'm going to stop him. So next time I go here, he doesn't go forward anymore. If I turn the corner and he feels straight, he's slow, I'm going to ask him for speed. Now you notice the way I use my voice. I didn't start clacking and use my voice all the way down to 10. Every time I use my voice, I want to step up one gear. The reason why I do that is because I want to be in control of that speed. I want that horse to know that a clock means whatever gear we're in, if we're in first, you gotta go to second. But then unless the clock counts again, you don't go to third. When the clock counts, you go to third and you hold third. I don't want to have to keep clocking to keep that speed. I want that horse to learn from me training at home that every time I clock, he has to hold that speed. Because then it's making my job a lot easier to go to stop. Because once I clock and I get to the speed that I want, let's say fourth gear, then all I gotta do is sit back and wait for that spot and say, whoa. But if I have to clock every stride to get him there, then when I quit clocking, he's almost beating me to the ground because he knows the stop is coming. I don't ever want the horse to know when the stop is coming. I want him to know that he has to carry that speed. If I don't say whoa, you go crash into that fence. If I say whoa, at any time, you're gonna stop. So what I work on, I use my legs, but the legs is not a cue. The leg is it's a tool that I need in order to get it to listen to the cue. So if I clock and it doesn't go, I use my legs and I get him there. If I clock and he gives me too much, I use my hands and I bring him back to what I want. So by the repetition, I keep showing him, hopefully he's going to learn that every time I clock, he's going to go at one more gear, but he's not going to skip 2 or 3. So we'll see through examples what we're going to do with this horse. I never trained this horse. I rode him a handful of times. Really good horse, but obviously I'm sure there's going to be some cues that are different. I'm just showing you guys my cues, what I'm comfortable at. So on the other side, I'm going to clock, let's say, 2 times, and then see what happens. Straight, doesn't want to run off. First, second, now he's going to third. I got to bring him back. I wanted to bring him back to second. As soon as he felt my hands, he stopped. I'm not going to punish him for that because he really listened to me. But that's exactly what I was saying. Just because I went to second, that doesn't mean that we get to go to third, unless I ask you to. If we're going to 0, neutral, you got to stay as 0. You can't go to first on your own. I'm going to wait, and he's keeping that speed now. So I'm going to keep this speed. This is the main thing I feel with this horse I don't have. After the rollbacks, he thinks he's going to go stop again. That time he listened really well. So now I'm going to change it up. I'm going to ask him to go, let's say, to third or fourth gear, and then I'm going to bring him back to first to make sure he listens to my cues. First, second, third, fourth, back to first. Now I put my hand down and I make sure that he holds first all the way to the end. So once again, I'm not working on the stop, but I'm working on getting this horse to pay attention to me all the way to that rundown. Notice a lot of people, every time they practice their stops, they practice them here at 3/4. But the horse knows he's supposed to stop here because you showed him many times. But I want to make sure that he knows to stop everywhere. So I'm going to turn the corner, clock once. Oh. See? Now this horse, if I would have gone down there in fourth gear, probably would have stopped +1. But I can't get a 0 stop here. Why? Because he's not paying attention to me. So sometimes I'll turn that corner and stop him early. Now he's listening. They're rolling back, go the other way. You see how similar this is to the Chopin. Now the other thing I noticed is starting to pull to the right a little bit, so I'm going to fix that. Let it go all the way. I'm going to put pressure on it. Same theory of the circle. And I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to take the pressure away from it. As long as you stay here, there's no pressure. When you get over there, you're going to find pressure. You notice I'm always spinning the opposite direction of where he's thinking about going. So now that I know that I've got that little problem, I'm not going to roll him back to the right because that's where he wants to go anyway. So I'm going to let him rest here. This is a good place. That's the bad place. This is a good place. I'm going to turn in the opposite direction to the left. Keep working on that. Now on the other side, he still wants to go to the right. I'm going to work on that also. Invite him to go. This is the bad place. Now, I don't want to go punish him where I needed to be on the other side. I'm going to stop him here in the center. Then I bring him back here and relax. I'm not going to go fast here. But I want this to be a good place. Now we're concentrating on where it needs to be, not so much the speed. So we're going to make this place here a good place to be. So sometimes we'll just walk here. Let him know that we want him to be here. As long as you're here, I'm not going to do anything to you. But that's the other side. Now I want to get to the point where when I invite him to go there, he says, I don't want to go there. I know what's going to happen over there. Now when he does that, then I'm going to know that I got to his brain. He's thinking about it. But he's going in by himself. So see, these are all mind games that I'm playing with him, but it's getting him to always think about me. How many times do we go ride and we catch ourselves just ride and worry about that phone call or the wife or the husband, I guess. Most of the times it's the wife. And you know, and then you're like, what am I doing with this horse? I'm just riding it. I don't want to just ride him. I want to train him. Every time I sit on my horse, I'm training. Even if I'm not doing much and I'm walking around like this, I know why I'm doing it, how long I'm going to do it for, and all that stuff. If you're getting on just to ride, you may as well go down the trail and let that horse relax. To get in the arena and just go ride without thinking about what you're doing, to me doesn't do anything. Same as a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 11-year-old like this horse. The minute I step on it, I've got a plan on what I need to do, and I'm going to try to execute it as good as I can. That phone call can wait. Sometimes it can, but you know, you can always get yourself into that mindset. I never go around, lope a circle on the phone like this, loping around. If I'm going to take that phone call, I'm going to stop. I'm going to call somebody. Then I pick up the lope. Because for that horse to be listening to this while I'm talking on the phone and not paying attention to what I'm saying when I'm on top of him, I don't think it does a whole lot. So I might be a little bit of a fanatic about that kind of stuff, but to me, that's how you get into a horse's mind. By that horse always having to wondering, what are we doing? What is he going to ask me next? Why is he doing that? So I try to teach the people that work for me or ride with me to always think about whatever that horse is thinking. We're going to try to get into that brain. I think that training a reining horse, it's about training their brain 90%, training their body 10%. If that brain wants to spin, they're going to spin. You can pick up on his face, kick as much as you want, and manhandle him around it. You might be able on a talented horse to get away with it for a few times, but it's not going to last that long because you have not taught that horse how to do it. You've made him do it. I have no problem getting after a horse that knows how to do something and decides not to do it. But I always want to make sure that that horse knows what he's supposed to do, and I always want to know that that horse knows the places in the arena where he needs to be. By holding on to him and helping him, even as 2-year-olds, you're not going to be able to teach that horse to use his own brain and to know where he's supposed to be. It's so much easier to loop 3 circles too fast and slow when you don't have to help your horse or not help him as much. But that starts when they're 2-year-olds. When they're 2-year-olds, obviously you can't expect them to know what they're doing, but you keep showing them. You don't hold them there. You put them there, you turn them loose. You let them get out, pressure, release. Pressure, release. Pretty soon they think, okay, if I stay here, he's not steering on me. If I go out there, I feel something on my face. I much rather not feel anything on my face, so I want to stay here. And that's my mindset, and I take it all the way to the end when I go show. Once again, when I go show, if he's wanting to lead to the right, I'm going to do everything I can to keep him straight. I'm not going to let him go over there and then steer him back, because I'm done training. When I walk in the show pen, it's all about showing. But all the way up to that gate, I'm doing something that's going to be something related to training. What do you think, Frank?
Yeah, Andrea, I think everybody here has really got a lot of valuable lessons tonight. At least I know I have. And as I said, I think, they don't check my ID anymore when I show up anywhere. Does anybody have any questions for Andrea? Yes, ma'am. Okay, very good. Andrea, this young lady would like to know what you do when a horse is racing when he stops.
Meaning with the front feet,
Yeah, I
or on
would
the
think
face,
how you,
like, or with the front end.
when he's racing at the front end, the old road course type stop,
Yeah, there's a few
bring the
things.
front end up a little bit.
Yeah, there's a few things that you can do. I tried to think why he's doing it. But to me, the horse can be bracy up front for multiple reasons. So not every answer is the right thing to do unless you know that that's the right question. So I ask myself, why is he bracing? One reason could be that he's not straight, meaning that he's coming to the stop not lined up straight, that the shoulders are leaning one way and the hip is on the other side. And most of the problem there is because the rider is trying to hold him in the position. And then when they say whoa and they drop their hands down, that horse falls out of position. And every time a horse changes position while he's stopping, you're going to feel it like a rough front end. So the first thing I ask myself, is this horse going really straight to the stop? Meaning that he's not leaning anywhere. Because anytime a horse leaves the shoulder, they're going to want to go that direction. So I want to put my hand down on the neck and making sure that this horse is lined up as it needs to be. That's my first question. If he's not, I steer him back straight until I get that straight line. Second thing is about speed, meaning that the horse could be anticipating that stop. He can get to that stop and then he's either slowing down or not maintaining that speed as good, and he's anticipating that stop, so then the weight shifts to the front end. Meaning that if a horse is thinking forward, he's pushing from behind, shoulder up, going forward, reaching forward. If a horse is thinking about stop, he's pushing back with his front end, he's not reaching forward with the front end. So if you say whoa when a horse is not going like this, but he's kind of going like this, obviously that's what you're going to get when you stop. So that's my second thing. So if I feel a horse that if I glide and I don't keep gliding him, he just wants to slow down, that's my answer. I want to make sure that if I ask him to go, he's going to carry me at whatever speed it is all the way to the end without me having to keep him there. That's the second thing. Third thing, and very common, is that the horse is just really stiffing his body when he's stopping. Meaning that he may stop pretty decent because you're saying whoa, but if you go to his face and just barely touch his face, you're going to feel him pulling on the bridle, pulling on your hand. If I have any resistance on my hand, that's going to transfer to his feet. So any resistance on the face, on the bridle, usually locks their feet up. Then I go to stop and just with my hand and I try to loosen them up, meaning that I'm not going to say whoa anymore because I know he knows how to stop. I just need to make him stop better. So I'm going to take a little contact on his face. If I feel him bracing at all, I'm going to bend in the direction where he's bracing. Meaning if I feel him pulling a little harder on the left rein, I bend into the left. Notice I bend in quite a bit until I feel him almost touching my foot and just going around and spinning, taking forward steps, and just loosening that rib cage up. I think this is really related to the rib cage a lot of times. So you can't just put their head down, because that's the only reason why you feel their face being stiff is because your reins are connecting your hands to their face. But there's something that's making that face being stiff. And most of the time you're going to find it by bending it. See, I notice on this horse I can bend him way easier to the left than I can to the right. To the right he bends his ears, but he doesn't want to lift his nose up. And that's telling me he's a little stiffer in his rib cage to the right. And I keep doing this until when I pick up on him. See how there he lifted his front end up a little bit? He started really good, and then halfway through it, it took a little step with both feet off the ground. That's telling me that there was a little stiff spot right there. Until I can feel his feet on the ground the whole time. That time he did it. So I either bend him, If I've got one that's really jamming it, what I'm going to do halfway through that stop, I'm going to push him forward out of that stop. And I'm going to bridle him up and make him think forward. Because a lot of times they're just being backed up so much, that they're anticipating the backup before they get to the stop. So for a horse to go forward, they're moving like this, and that's what you want when you stop. For a horse to back up, he's moving like that. So a lot of horses are anticipating the backup too much. Halfway through the stop, I'm like, oh shoot, I gotta go back. So then they jam the front end. So on those type of horses, they really feel like they're sucking back. I'll stop them and then push them out. Either jogging forward or walking forward. I never lope him. You don't want those feet loping in the stop. You want to trotting in the stop. So you want to jogging forward or walking forward. Usually that does it. Now some horses are a lot better with the front end naturally than others. You can always, I think, make him better, but the horse that's not naturally good with the front end, you're not going to make him good. You're going to make him better.
Thank
Did
you.
I answer the question?
Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? What do you think, Andrea? I think you did a great job. Anybody have any questions? How much do you charge a month?
How much do I charge a month? For you, $5,000 a month. They can come up and ask me privately. For you, it's always $1,000.
Having some fun. I'm just having some fun. Come on. Any changes? Yeah, come on. Stick your hand up.
We didn't really talk about lead changes. How do you handle a horse that drags the lead? Is there any exercise?
And then he's laid behind, two changes up front and up behind at the same time. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't touched the lead changes. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that too. Obviously, for a horse to change leads correctly, he has to change both up front and behind at the same time. So you've got to have good body control in order to teach that. Now we can work on it as part of training and teaching a lead change. But to me, like we're talking tonight, if it happens most of the times in the show pen and outside, he changes pretty good. What he's doing is anticipating the lead change. Meaning that if a horse is going forward, he's leading with his shoulders and he's following with the hip. If a horse is backing up, he's leading with the hip and following with the shoulder. So if I'm loping forward, what I'm paying attention of is the shoulder, making sure that the shoulders are pointed in the right direction. As I'm coming to the center of the arena, I want to make sure that that horse gets to that lead change with his shoulders in front of his hip, or as straight as possible towards that middle cone. If the horse is coming here on the right circle and he's thinking there, and I'm trying to hold him here, but his shoulder is there, the hip is here, then guess what? When I ask him to change over there, he's going to change with his shoulders, but that's never changed because it was way out of the way. So what I'm trying to make sure of is that as I'm coming to the middle, that horse is lined up with his hip. Because then when I ask him to change, I'm asking the whole body to change at the same time. And that's going to move that hip over. But if the hip is over there, and the shoulder is here, that's not going to be good. So what we want to do, as far as exercises, first of all, we want to make sure that the horse is not leaning towards the outside of the circle, because that's the most important thing. So as we come towards the center, sometimes I'll invite that horse like I was before, and then pull him in. Making sure that even if my body goes way out there, you still need to stay on the circle. That's the most important thing. Then I start working on the lead changes also, meaning that sometimes I'll come here, ask him to change lead, but I don't let him go to the left. I hold him in the counter canter, and I push the hip to the outside. So now what I'm doing is making sure that he's not connecting changing leads with changing direction. Because that's what's happening most of the times when they change up front and not behind. They've changed direction before they reminded themselves to change behind. They changed up front and went over there, but they never changed behind. So I want to make sure that that horse is thinking about changing lead, both ends, front end and behind end, before they get to change direction. So as I'm preparing him, I'm not going to go in a counter canter and then change. I'm going to stay here, ask him to change, and then hold him in the counter canter. Now this is on a horse that wants to anticipate the lead change, or on a horse that's changing up front and not behind. For different problems, there's these different exercises. I don't do this very often on a horse that doesn't have that problem because I don't want them thinking that they can stay over here and change lead very easy. Meaning that it makes it almost too easy for them to fall out of lead without you asking them to. Because you're teaching them to stay to the left and being on the right lead. So what I try to teach my horses and do more than that is the opposite. Meaning that as long as I'm here to the left, you're going to stay in this left lead. I want it to almost hunt that lead change. So when I ask him, I'm going to ask you and hold you in the wrong lead to where it's a little bit more uncomfortable, and then change. Because I want him to look for that lead change to be a good thing. It's harder to be in a counter canter than it is to be on the correct lead. So I want to put that horse in the correct lead all the time where he's going a certain direction so that it's in his brain that as long as we stay here to the right, we're supposed to be on the right lead. That exercise is real good to control the shoulders and the hips of the horse, but you don't want to do it once you pass that problem or you think you've got it better. You don't want to do it too often because then it's teaching your horse to be out of lead, going the wrong direction.
Does that help you? Yes, ma'am. Okay.
I actually have two questions. Do you want them both at the same time?
You can say two things at the same time.
Okay. Okay. I'm wondering, do you ever utilize paid warm-ups, and if you do, for what reasons, and what are your strategies? And my other question is, when you're developing a futurity horse, when do you start showing them, and what's your strategy when you start showing them?
Perfect. We went from no questions to about an hour worth of answers. No, that's good. Yes, I use as many paid warm-ups as I can. I still think that you can do a lot of the same things that you do in the paid warm-up at home sometimes, or at a friend's house, because to me it's not so much about the arena, if you do the right thing, but it's about getting the horse in the right environment. I started a couple of years ago when my 3-year-old started about May, June. I walk to the middle of the pen, I do my left turn, right turn, lope off. So my strategy behind it is I'm going to stay on pattern as long as I don't feel a major problem. Then I stop and work on that problem, then I get off and get out. Meaning, let's say I walk to the middle, I do my left turns, not bad. Right turn, yeah, I could probably get a plus half, even if I knew that I could get a plus 1, but let's just wait. I pick up the lead, go on the right lead, I do one pass circle, I ask him to slow down, he pops out of lead. Okay, so now I'm going to start working on that because that's a major penalty. I'm going to ask him to slow down 2 or 3 times. When I get him in lead, I'm going to get off in the center. I'm going to walk out. I don't care if it took 5 minutes, if it took 2 minutes, or if it took 15 minutes. Then I'll go back to another arena or a parking lot, whatever it is. I walk around, come back, do the same exact thing. Come in, left turn, right turn. Let's ask for that slow down. If I fix that, good, I move on to the next thing. If I didn't, I'm going to keep doing that. Takes me more than 3-4 times in the arena to fix it, I'm going to finish that day with that. If it doesn't, then I move on to the next thing. So the theory for me behind the paid warm-up is being able to work on the problem, obviously having enough time to do it. But I see a lot of people doing paid warm-ups and trying to touch everything at the same time. And they've got maybe 2 or 3 things they could have fixed, but they never did it because they wanted to touch everything. So as long as I'm good with it and I just need to get their attention, I will move on to the patterns and do things like that. But if I encounter a problem, to me it's a lot better to fix that problem and not even touch the other things. Yeah, there may have been a few things that I could have fixed and I didn't even touch them, but for the horse's brain, this is a lot better. Because now he's walking out of the arena thinking, okay, I was doing something that I didn't like and he fixed it before we get out of the arena. But if you're just going through the motion and not fixing it all the way, just kind of going through it, then that horse is still going to be in the mindset that he can walk out of that gate and he doesn't have to be that good in here. So that's my theory behind it. As far as the 3-year-old, did you ask me about the 3-year-olds when I start showing them? No, what was it? Frank?
Yeah, the lady asked when time do you started showing your 3-year-olds?
Yeah, I don't even, well, I think about them as 3-year-olds, but I'm looking at them at what point are they at in their training. They're going to tell me, I've got, about 2-3 months there that I can play with. Not a whole lot more than that, but I've got that period of time that I can play with, and there's a lot of factors into it. There may be a horse that's ready maneuver-wise, but mentally I don't think he's going to handle it because it's too fractious. Most of the times it's mares. Mares usually wait a little longer unless they're great ones showing. There may be some point where he's ready mentally, but I've got such a poor maneuver on one end, and I don't want him connecting the show pen with the poor maneuvers where I've got a major problem. Or more than the poor maneuver, if he's frustrated about something, I'm never going to go in the show pen. I don't want him thinking about the show pen and being frustrated. I may have just a zero turnaround, but if he's happy to do that zero and it doesn't bug him at all, then it's fine. I'll go show him and ask for a zero. But if it takes a while to get that zero and he's getting nervous about that left turnaround, I'm not going to go show him. So what I want to get to is that I want the horse to be comfortable doing all the pieces and putting them together. It may be two-handed, it may be in a snaffle, but I want to make sure that whatever I got to do in that show, that I can do it comfortably at home, day in and day out, and I don't have major issues. If I've got an issue, I wait a little bit longer. I think a lot of people get into that mindset where they gotta get the horse to the show. You know, it's already July, August, we gotta go show that 3-year-old. You know, last year, the second horse I had in the Open Futurity Finals was shown for the first time the first week of October. He wasn't ready mentally to go show. He was shown at the Congress, he won the Congress, and then he was in the top 10 at the Futurity. So obviously, not showing early, didn't hurt him. There's some that actually want to go show early because I'm not sure about their mindset. You know, that's another issue too. If you've got the luxury to have 4 or 5, which not very many people do, but a lot of times you don't even know, do I really want to own this horse or not? Because there's something about it. I know he can do all the parts and I know it's good. He's doing it out here. But you know what? You want to go test it and see if you want to even keep going with that certain horse. Because there's horses that just give you that feeling that they're not going to be very good in the show pen. I usually get that feeling like when I try to do a pattern at home and I have somebody videoing me to where I don't have the luxury of fixing things to make a video of the horse. I get that feeling this horse is probably not going to be good in the show pen. So I'm going to go show him to find out if I really want to put all that time into it. Because a lot of times you can find out at home. Let's say you put somebody and say, well, video this pattern for me, and you do the pattern and things to just falling apart. So it's not about the show pen. It's about when you put things together, all together, and you're not helping your horse, and then pretty soon things fall apart. So there's different situations, but I usually let the horse anytime between July and October.
Did that help you, man? Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? All right, down. Oh, is that a question or is it cold? Okay. You guys are kind of bundled up. How about down here? Anybody? What do you think, Andrea? I think. Yes, ma'am.
I have a horse that every time we come to the arena, whether it's fencing or handicap,
Sorry, every time you get what at the end of the arena, every time you do what?
as soon as I turn to the straight stretch, either if it's fencing or on the rundown or whatever, she puts her head straight up in the air and focuses as fast as she can. How would you deal with that?
I tried to break it up. The reason why they're doing that is because they are obviously anticipating the stop. That's what she's doing. She's anticipating the speed to get to that stop. So what I tried to do is break the routine up to, she's obviously connected, and turning that corner means running down and stopping. So most people, they just start pulling on it to make it slow down, and they still go down and maybe stop or go down to the fence. And that's exactly what that horse was thinking. He was thinking to go down there. So what I want to do, and I haven't touched it with this one just because I was going through it pretty fast, sometimes I'll turn the corner, and if they don't run off, I'll talk to him a couple times, but if they do run off, I'll do it right away, and then I steer him in a circle. Because I don't want it connecting to just turning this corner means going to a stop, at whatever speed, it doesn't matter. I turn the corner, now I'm going to a fast circle here, and I ask it to slow down. So what I'm trying to do is break up that routine in that horse's mind that straight line means going down the pen. She runs off right away, steer her right away into a turn or to a small circle. The other thing that may help, horses running off, just ask it to stop and see what they do. So you turn the corner, here comes the head. Whoa, they don't stop. So now we can work on the stop. You're not concentrating on that rundown. You work so much on slowing her down in the rundown that she knows that, and she's still doing it. So now we're treating it different. Maybe her putting her head up is telling me that she's not thinking about me. So I'm going to ask her to do something. Let's say stop. And most likely she's not going to stop. Until, even with her head up, she stops. And then most of the time, she'll quit putting her head up and running. If she doesn't get to go down there, we stop her over here. So basically what I'm trying to do is change her mind. It doesn't matter where I turn, unless I'm telling you to run down there, I might as well just stop and do 6 turnarounds right there. I want to confuse her. Alright. Just don't pick up on her face and try to slow her down, because that's what she's wanting you to do. Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think? You did a great job. On behalf of the Arabian Mighty Horse Association, Markel, everybody here, I'd like to thank you because I learned a lot tonight. And I guarantee you, I'll be on that YouTube channel trying to figure out what he was saying while he was doing it.
You'll be on YouTube, all right.
Easy.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
We'd love to have all of our riders come in. I believe we're going to do this in center ring. Let me unplug that.
Yeah, it'll be part of that.